Please state your name for the record.
My name is Gary Lansing.
Mr. Lansing, where do you live?
In Westlake?
Is that in South Texas?
No, it's actually across the river in East Texas.
Mr. Lansing, where do you work?
I actually work in Alastair City.
And that's in the current city we're in today, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah. Mr. Lansing, what do you do for a living?
I'm an architect.
What is your educational background, Mr. Lansing?
I have a postgrad degree in architecture from Alastair City University,
Where did you get your undergraduate degree?
the same place.
Mr. Lansing, are you married?
I am. My wife's name is Leona.
Do you and Leona have any children?
We do. We have two, Blair and Reese.
Are they both biological children of yours?
Blair is, but we adopted Reese when he was young,
So you adopted him. How old was Reese when you adopted him?
14 months.
Mr. Lansing, what, if any, circumstances surrounded Reese's adoption?
Well, his biological mother became very ill shortly after he was born, and she was a single mother and wasn't able to take care of him anymore. So we were more than happy to be able to adopt him. We wanted to add to the family.
You mentioned that his mother was sick. What exactly was wrong with her, to your knowledge?
She had a kidney disease, polycystic kidney disease.
And what was her name?
Kendra James.
And Mr. Lansing, after the adoption, what happened to Miss James?
Unfortunately, she died a few years later.
What, if any, concerns did Mrs. James's sickness have or cause for you and Leona as regards Reese?
What caused a lot of worry for us, especially when you're dealing with an adopted child and the unknown. So we had several tests run on Reese, basically any test you could think of. People actually probably thought we were hypochondriacs, but with something like an unknown, as I say, you want to be ready for anything that might come up later.
Your Honor, show me to counsel for defense was marked as for identification as exhibit N1. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lansing, what have I just handed you?
These are the results for the first test we had run on Reese.
And to be clear, was this the test that you ran or had run on Reese in response to his mother's condition?
Yes, it is.
Are they substantially the same or the same as when you originally got them?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we move to admit into evidence what's been marked as Exhibit N1.
Are there any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, it will be admitted as M1.
N1, Your Honor.
N1.
Yes. Mr. Lansing, what do those results say about Reese's health?
That he carries the gene for polycystic kidney disease.
Now, Mr. Lansing, what else, if anything, did you notice about Reese as he continued to grow?
Well, Reese was very smart. We noticed things about him that you don't notice in most normal children. He was speaking in full sentences and phrases at 3. He had a knack for puzzles. He had an incredible attention span as a toddler.
What did you do in response to this?
We had him tested and actually learned that his IQ was about 180.
So he's a smart kid then. What kind of schooling did you enroll him in?
Because of how gifted he was, we put him in a Paideia school, which has individualized learning programs, and he actually completed the high school curriculum when he was 12 and a half.
So he graduated from high school when he was 12 and a half?
Yes.
Objection, reading. Please rephrase.
Mr. Lansing, how old was Reese when he graduated high school?
He was 12 and a half.
What kind of schooling did you enroll him in after that?
We enrolled him in the University of South Texas.
Is he currently enrolled there?
He
Objection,
is.
leading. Rephrase.
When will Reese graduate?
He'll graduate this summer with a pre-med degree.
How old will Reese be when he graduates?
16.
Does he have any plans, to your knowledge, after?
Well, he's been accepted to Stanford Medical University as well as South Texas Medical School, but Leona and I are pushing for Stanford just because of how prestigious it is.
Beg of course, indulge one moment. Mr. Lansing, you just testified that Reese was a highly intelligent boy.
Yes.
What, if any, concerns did this present for you and Leona with regards to his intelligence?
Well, we were obviously very proud of how intelligent he was, but it did cause us some concern that how smart he was and how far ahead of the other students he was, it might jeopardize his ability to associate with his peers. So just the different academic level, we didn't know if that would hinder him. So we wanted to make sure he was doing well.
How did you address these concerns?
For about 7 years now, he's been in counseling
How often does Reese see the counselor?
once every other month. It just gives him that opportunity to just discuss any issues that might be going on.
When, if ever, do you and Leona meet with the counselor?
Leona and I meet with the counselor once every 3 months for about an hour at a time.
Why do you meet with the counselor?
We just
Mr.
like to
Langston.
stay abreast of any issues that might be going on with Reese.
When, if ever, has an issue arisen that causes you concern?
Not until recently. We learned that Reese was actually in a relationship.
Why was Reese's being in a relationship a problem?
Well, it wasn't the fact that he was in a relationship. We had no problem with that. But the individual he was in the relationship with, Taylor Warren, we learned that she was in poor health.
Why was this significant?
Because Reese told the counselor he intended to donate a kidney to Taylor.
Why did the fact that Reese wanted to help his friend cause you concern?
Well, first, he's 16 years old, so we were not going to let him donate a kidney to somebody on a whim. And we were also scared that it would affect his gene for the polycystic kidney disease in the future.
When, if ever, did you try to address these concerns with Reese?
We tried to, but we never got the chance.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we tried to get Reese to come home on a regular basis to talk about what's going on. And one, I believe Sunday in October, he was at the house and we're eating and he decided he was going to tell us that he intended to donate a kidney to someone. And he got about a sentence in before my wife said, absolutely not.
Objection, hearsay. Response?
Your Honor, this is a excited utterance. Mrs. Lansing just found out that her son wants to donate a kidney. This would be a shocking time for any parent.
If that's the ground you want to go on, just lay a little bit more foundation about how this response took place, the mood that he was in when he was said this, how this response happened.
Very good. Mr. Lansing, where was this conversation conducted?
We were in the kitchen at our house, normal Sunday afternoon, and in the middle of dessert, all of a sudden our son's trying to tell us he's going to donate a kidney.
And what was Leona's reaction?
Leona was very adamant. She said, absolutely not, you're not going to do this. And Reese just kept trying to press the issue.
And what did Leona have to say to Reese's desire to donate a kidney?
She just said, absolutely not, we're your legal guardians and we're not allowing this to happen.
What did Reese say to this?
He actually stormed out. I didn't even get the chance to talk to him about it.
To be clear, when, if ever, did you tell Reese that he had the PKD genetic defect?
We haven't told Reese or hadn't at that time.
When, if ever, or rather, excuse me, Mr. Lansing, let me rephrase. How did you learn that Reese had gone forward with the surgery?
Actually, in November, I got a notice in the mail from my insurance carrier about a blood test at the hospital.
Why did this raise concern with you?
Well, my wife, Leona, goes with Reese to all of his medical appointments, and she didn't know about this one, so I called the insurer to see what this test was all about.
What did you learn?
I learned for the first time that my son had in fact donated his kidney. And the hospital told me that the charge was put on my account by mistake and was supposed to be put on Ms. Warren's insurance.
When, if ever, did you approach Reese when you found this out?
I tried to go talk to him at school, but he was still shutting Leona and I out. But I eventually got in touch with him, and he wouldn't talk to me until I told him I'd spoken to the hospital, and he went ballistic. All he kept saying was that the hospital did what they were supposed to.
Objection, hearsay. Response?
Your Honor, this goes to the effect on the listener and Mr. Lansing's further actions after this conversation.
Do you believe the statement's going to the effect on the listener and not the truth of the matter asserted? No. All right.
Further, may I respond, Your Honor?
Explain how this is just going for the effect.
To the effect, well, Your Honor, all of these events precipitate in our being in this courtroom here today. And so by Reese having this kind of outburst and this backlash, it resulted in ultimately filing a lawsuit.
What is the statement specifically from the hospital?
The hospital said that, pardon me, Your Honor, let me digest that question for just a second, please. The statement from the hospital is that they conducted an operation on Reese Lansing and took his kidney away from him, which in turn is the reason we are here today.
All right, I'll allow that statement in just for the effect on the listener.
Thank you, Your
Continue.
Honor. Mr. Lansing, after you learned these things, what was your next course of action?
Well, after talking to Reese and explaining to him that regardless of his opinion of the hospital helping people, they really had no right to do the surgery without the consent of me and my wife, who's 16 years old. So I went to my lawyer to see what could be done about it.
Thank you, Mr. Lansing. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
I apologize for using my notes, Your Honor, but
You're fine.
Now, Mr. Lansing, your son is basically a genius, right?
Yes, he's very smart.
And I'm sure you're very proud of that.
Where?
And he even went to college when he was like 13,
Yes,
and he's about to graduate at the age of 16.
yes,
But obviously, as a concerned parent, you still want to be careful because of his young age.
yes,
And that's part of the reason that you put him into counseling.
yes,
And part of the reason for being careful is because Reese is always impulsive, right?
he's impulsive at times.
But not always.
He's a teenager. Teenagers have a lot of impulsive tendencies. You have to kind of weigh which ones you think will actually follow through and which ones not.
Now, Mr. Lansing, do you recall giving a deposition in this case?
Yes,
And at that deposition, you were there with your attorney,
yes,
and that deposition was under oath
yes,
and taken on January 5th, 2015.
yes,
And after you gave that deposition, you had the opportunity to look at it for any possible errors and make corrections.
yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm showing opposing counsel a copy of Mr. Lansing's deposition, specifically page 4. Last question. Permission to approach?
You may.
Now, Mr. Lansing, this is a copy of your deposition, correct?
Yes,
And it is complete?
yes,
All right. Now, Mr. Lansing, I'm going to turn your attention to the bottom of page 4. When you were discussing some of the issues with Reese and the reasons that he was in counseling. Question was why? Answer, for a number of reasons. Like what? Well, Reese has always been impulsive. Reese ignores risks and does what Reese wants. Did I read that correctly?
yes,
So a minute ago when I asked you if Reese is impulsive, the answer to my question is actually yes, he is always impulsive.
yes, Reese is impulsive.
And when you first learned of Reese's decision to donate an organ, it was through a conversation you had with his counselor, correct?
Yes,
She told you, or he told you, that Reese was considering donating kidney to Taylor Warren,
yes,
but you did nothing at that time.
no,
And later, Reese came to dinner at your house.
yes,
And he tried to tell you about his intentions to donate a kidney,
yes, he did.
but you did nothing.
No, he's 16. I assumed that he wouldn't be allowed to since he's a minor.
And you never followed up with him.
Objection, Your Honor, speculative.
Response?
Your Honor, it's about the witness's own actions.
Overruled.
I tried to get in contact with my son. I went to his dorm, called him. He wouldn't see me and he wouldn't take my calls.
And in fact, you didn't do anything to try and stop the surgery until after it already happened.
I didn't know about the surgery until after it already happened because the hospital did not contact my wife and I when my 16-year-old son went to have his kidney removed.
So the answer to my question is no, you didn't do anything until after the surgery.
No, technically.
And the first thing that you did was contact an attorney.
Well, I went to talk to my son after I talked to the hospital, and then yes, I did contact an attorney.
Now, part of the reason that you were concerned is because of the gene that Reese has for PKE.
Yes,
And I believe you saw the exhibit N1 in front of you.
yes,
Now, at the bottom of N1, there's a comment section that states, please note, the mere presence of a genetic mutation in PKE2 does not guarantee that the patient will contract or exhibit signs or symptoms of polycystic kidney disease. Did I read that correctly?
yes,
So you're aware that there's a chance Reese will never become symptomatic.
I am.
And you were aware that his mother had this gene,
Yes,
but you're not aware of how she actually died, correct?
no,
And in your part of your role as an architect, you were building a new kidney or a transplant facility, correct?
yes,
Objection, Your Honor. Speculative.
Overruled.
And while you were building this around the office and at work, you heard some bad stories about transplants that had ended badly, correct?
yes.
But as far as you know, in this case, at this point, Reese hasn't had any problems or symptoms.
No, but I'm not concerned with problems or symptoms right now. He could develop problems in the future, and again, this hospital took my son's kidney and he's 16 years old, and they did not contact me first. And now my son, who's predisposed to a genetic kidney disease, while he does not have symptoms right now, could get them, and the removal of his kidney could affect him later in life.
But at this point in time, he's symptom-free.
Correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Lansing, why did you never tell Reese about his genetic defect?
Well, it never came up until recently. I mean, again, our son is very gifted, but he is still 16 years old. This is not something that you want to burden your child with. He's not an an adult yet, no matter what his IQ is, and my wife and I just didn't think the right time had come up.
Mr. Langston, why are you bringing this particular lawsuit?
Because Reese still doesn't appreciate the risks he's brought on himself. Whether
Objection, speculation.
Response?
Your Honor, I believe that as Reese's father, he can testify as to what Reese can and cannot appreciate. He is intimately involved in his life and has been to this point.
I would ask that you limit it to specific interactions that would make her believe that that was Reese's feelings about this going on, but just making that blanket statement without any foundation would be improper.
Very good. I'll rephrase your
So
Honor.
I'll sustain.
Mr. Lansing, what are your and Leona's motivations for bringing this lawsuit?
Well, regardless of whether or not my son accepts it, he has no idea what the future holds. And
Objection, speculation.
Your Honor, nobody knows what the future holds.
Overruled.
So my wife and I feel like it's our responsibility to try to make sure that Reese is prepared as best as he can for anything that this operation and the loss of his kidney could cause him in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Lansing. Your Honor, nothing further. May I publish Exhibit N1 to the jury, please?
Yes, ma'am.